everyone. Today we have the new episode. We will discuss about safety and reliability.
Awesome,
We
Sandy.
have our world famous speakers, Professor Edward, Professor David Smith, Professor Rob. We have our new friend, Mr. Austin, Professor Ching. Actually, personally, I'm very sad because of this war, because World Talent Economy Forum always believe on humanity. I do not know. We have many positive things we can do around the world, a lot of positive initiative we can do, but because of this war and the bad politics or the bad things, many people died. That is our concern. We should take care of all of the people. We should help each others, and definitely we need a very good global communities who can make this world more safe and more reliable. That is our major concern. We are working on this. Please, the global community, please support the Ukraine people. Please, we have to go against the war. We do not like the wars. World Talent Economy Forum never promote it. We always promote humanity. So we will discuss about safety and reliability. I want to give chance Professor Edward.
Mhm. Yeah, well, thank you. And first of all, I want to echo your sentiments. I did a lot of work in and was in Russia in 1981, 89, 90, in Estonia and other places like that, and trying to not only help their economies but to help them become open systems. And so it's really a tragedy what's happening right now. I've known a lot of Ukrainians as well as a lot of really great Russians, and so we see we're cosmopolitans, globalists, if you want to call it that, because we see how we have a phrase in this country, or at least I do: make trade, not war. And the idea is that that's what we would like. But when you have a regime that basically doesn't care about their own people, then they don't care if their people are suffering. They'd rather do the things that you see today. So, but the way to counter that, again, is to create a better world, to not only to help develop the talent to do technical things like we're doing right here and right now, but to understand that the best way to have prosperous economies is to have open societies with open discussion, where people deal with each other peacefully, where people see each other as brothers and sisters, whether they're in Malaysia or in Russia or in Ukraine or in Europe or wherever you want to say, Africa. So I certainly want to echo what Sharif is saying. Russia is a third world economy that has oil. David Smith, the great David Smith, basically said they're a gas station. And they really don't have the talent. It's unfortunate. And so this is where we're focusing on the right thing of training the next generation. And part of that, of course, is autonomous AI devices and the discussion we're having here today. And when we talk about this, we're talking about, for example, self-driving cars. Robots that help in hospitals, and in other activities. What we're talking about is intelligent devices that are not controlled by human beings and that act autonomously on their own, that make their own decisions. The cars are the most obvious example, but we're going to have the same thing with, for example, flying vehicles and drones. Sadly, we're also having the same thing with weapons. And I hope this war creates a movement to be very careful about autonomous weapons. But generally, these, of course, are going to be great devices, whether it's cars or robots, and they're going to be very important for the future. But security and reliability and resilience are going to be absolutely crucial for these things. It's interesting. I saw a study recently that was trying to look at autonomous cars and autonomous vehicles. And if you're in an autonomous vehicle, a lot of people are sort of, we're a little bit nervous. What happens if it looks like the autonomous vehicle is going to make a wrong decision? Should we have an override switch? Should we have some control over the autonomous vehicle? And what's interesting is that the studies suggest that because it's a kind of a gray area, it could actually make the autonomous vehicle less efficient, because the driver sort of thinks, I know I have some control, but I'm not sure how much control, and I'm not sure about in what situations. And so some of the studies, for example, show that it's better just to leave it completely autonomous, rather than say, we're going to have this mixed system. And so these are the kinds of issues that we're still sorting out, certainly with vehicles, because that's one of the big things. But I think autonomous devices are going to be even more important. For example, in healthcare, one of the areas I'm most interested in working in hospitals, giving shots, administering tests where you don't have a doctor there, you just have a robot there that's doing it, an intelligent robot. Imagine one of the devices like Siri on your if you have an Apple device, you have Siri and you say, "Hey Siri," and Siri will answer. Oh, well, it's not answering right now, but anyway, you get the point. So this is because I got my volume down. Anyway, but this is going to these devices, autonomous devices, are going to be a very important part of our techno future. And again, the resilience and reliability and so forth, and hopefully my colleagues will talk a little bit more about the technical aspects, are going to be absolutely crucial to them being beneficial to humanity.
Thank you, Professor David Smith.
Well, Sharif and Edward, I'd like to also echo your sentiments on what's happening in the geopolitical realm right now. It's really unfortunate, and it's going to result in not only a loss of life, but I believe other damages as well, as you see what's in that pathway there. This topic is actually pretty well suited for today, because as you begin to look in the environment that we're seeing all different types of intelligent systems, autonomous systems beginning to be deployed in many different places. As Edward talked about, where the place that comes most to mind is the automobile industry. We're seeing them in many other places. Airbus actually was one of the pioneers for using autonomous approaches to landings and takeoffs that the pilots could override. As you begin to look at that, that's becoming much more common in many other places. Healthcare is one that's beginning to push it. Many of the simple tests, some of the actual robotic procedures and things are mostly autonomous, even though there's override that go with them. And you're seeing that, and that presents a whole range of issues. Edward mentioned the fact that you might see in warfare, and I think we've already seen the precursors of using it in warfare with some of the robotics, particularly in the protection area around complexes and things, that once they're set up and safety is removed, they are autonomously acting and do that. The systems that are used to attack missiles and projectiles incoming to ships and bases runs primarily autonomously because of the reaction time. So you're seeing that in many different places today in the world. But it's how do we get safety and other things in these highly autonomous systems, and it's one that there's a lot of interest. In fact, IEEE just is doing quite a bit of work right now in beginning to look at how to move to a smarter world, stronger safety requirements built around the autonomy and intelligent systems. And it really is beginning to look there. There's actually DARPA in some of their grand challenges, systems for safety and autonomous behavior are where they have works that began actually back in the early 2000s. I think the first grand challenge on that was 2007, but you're beginning to see them going. But you begin to see some of the places where you're beginning to look at now certification for autonomous systems. There is the National Transportation Commission has set up engineering standards now for autonomous and intelligent systems, and they have a unique set of tests going at with, including things like automatic emergency braking, lane detection warning, forward collision, electromagnetic interference, many other tests that are part of what they're trying to do with it. But this is a systems view where we have to work across many of the systems that are in the place in them. And the marketplace for this is huge. Unfortunately, it's not one marketplace, but it's many different marketplaces added together. And the concept is called SRR, which is safety, reliability, resilience. And these are very important for these systems going forward. But for first cut, that's it. But I think there's a lot more as we dig deeper on this.
Thank you, Professor David Smith. Professor Rob, what the industrial insight you want to add for today's discussion?
Well, as has been mentioned, we're using autonomous equipment in a number of ways. The most advanced efforts are surrounding autonomous driving at the moment. They've recently bled over into autonomous robotics and autonomous weapon systems. Fortunately, so far in the Ukraine, we haven't seen the deployment of any autonomous weapon systems. Most of the hardware we deployed looks to be relatively old, not cutting edge yet. The issue, of course, with autonomous weapon systems, if they, by nature, they aren't really safe because they're weapon systems, but you want them pointed in the right direction. You need them to be reliable because a weapon system that's not working doesn't provide any benefit. And the resilience when it comes to autonomous equipment really has to do with its ability to not only deal with environmental factors, but electronic hacking and an attempt to either shut down or take over the weapon system and use it against its owner, which of course would be problematic. When looking at autonomous systems, it is critical that you go through a very heavy level of simulation. And the good news is over the last decade, we've, as an industry, have increased simulation capability substantially to the point where you can put an autonomous car on a virtual road and run it at machine speeds against every single weather condition, every single road condition. And when I say machine speeds, you could do years of testing in hours. And the end result is these systems, as they're starting to come to market, and we're expecting the first level of 4 autonomous automotive systems to appear in the 2026 model year at this point. We'll have capability before then, but we still have to get through regulation. And the first level 5 systems probably still won't hit until 2030, largely gated by regulation. And the concerns, of course, have to do with trying to deploy this stuff too soon and having it interspersed with people. And the long-term problem we're going to have to solve is how these systems interoperate with people either in or around them. Most of the testing does indicate that if you can get people out of the mix, the reliability, safety, of course, safety goes up a lot because you don't have people to hurt in the vicinity, and resilience goes up as well because you don't have people futzing with the environment or trying to interleave their behavior with the machines. Recognize these autonomous machines work and operate very quickly, but if you put a person in there that doesn't react as quickly, then you have to increase the tolerances because you have to allow for the human's slower thinking speed and slower reaction speed, and have to allow for the humans likely to make mistakes. One of the big issues, of course, with autonomous systems is with regard to software updates and management. If an administration, if the update does harm, it can do harm across the entire ecosystem very rapidly. Very different than, of course, people. If you had a lesson that was false and you taught it to a bunch of employees, you'd have a very slow propagation rate, and you'd be able to get ahead of it once you saw the problem. With autonomous systems, that's not possible. You tend to roll out the update across the entire environment at once, hopefully after testing. and if there's a problem, you can get breakage at a crisis level across the entire ecosystem, which is problematic. You do have to watch, as we mentioned before, bias in the data sets and making sure that the systems are proper, not only properly trained, but as they're interfacing with the world, the data that they're receiving is accurate. We've certainly seen automated systems in airplanes result in the downing of aircraft when those systems become compromised. And when you take the pilots out of the mix, you can react a lot faster, but you can also act a lot faster. And if a system becomes compromised, then the crash becomes even more certain because there's nobody there to thwart it. So it always comes into this idea of assuring the system end to end, from the time it's created to how it's serviced and updated to how it's supported, and then having some type of fast trigger. So in case there is a critical problem, these systems are disconnected and they don't do the massive amount of damage that they can do if they're allowed to run autonomously on false data or a false update. So we're moving to a new area. We're really not, as a world or a nation, ready for a lot of what we're going to be rolling through. We don't yet have the level of protections that we need in place. And as always, we will likely deploy some of these things at scale. We've certainly seen that with Tesla. Deploy some of these things at scale and have some rather dire consequences to not doing adequate testing. But as I say, the offset is that we're now testing a lot more in simulation, which allows us to do testing very rapidly. It's that sometimes our priorities get upside down, and we're we're putting a launch time or date in front of the safety requirements that we need to assure to make sure that launch goes without a hitch and no one is harmed. So we've got some thinking to do, and in the end, we're probably going to end up having autonomous systems overseeing autonomous systems, simply because people can't react fast enough. But that does suggest that we need to look at this holistically and make sure that the simulation levels we are applying are adequate to the task.
Thank you, Professor Rob. Professor Ching.
Okay, well, hello, Austin. Okay, our new friend. The others I don't know. Okay, we're all old friends. Okay, we're not enemies. We're all friends. Okay. So basically, the first thing you keep talking about, but I'm trying to say something else, technical. But you want to talk about a social system. So I start with my view that society should solve the solution value first. For making rational decisions. Society should solve the solution value for making rational decisions first before we move into this autonomous system. Okay, very simple. Okay, this is too dangerous. Okay, now all these things killing without humans. This is getting a little bit overboard. Okay, I solved the problem of value in 1972. And I predict the saving loan crisis. I predict the subprime vote, and I help Nike solve the subprime vote, and nobody mentioned it. I was the one who did it, and now they don't know solve the future financial crisis. Nobody knows, okay, because they refuse to accept this field started by Kenneth Aaron, Geraldo Group, mathematical economics. In order to make rational decisions, you have to consider an entire picture of social science. Okay, you have to go to infinity. Okay, infinity was the first suggested by Immanuel Kant, supported by David Hilbert. David Hilbert was my grand teacher. Okay, David Hilbert and Courant and Harold Grant-Damit. Okay. So basically, that's where I start. But what I really like to do is to talk about the technical part. Okay. The technical part needs three innovations. The autonomous system needs three innovations not known to society. First innovation is jump house. Okay, I guess our old friend probably heard of jump house. Right now, I propose this as the only physics mechanism to stop bounces. Okay, if you have a bounce, you want to stop it. The only way is to have a jump pulse, a sudden change of force. Okay, this we claim. Okay, now we discover this. Okay, so all these people, they are, they talk about autonomous system. It's almost impossible without stopping bounces, because you need to come into contact with the environment. Once you get into contact, you have bounces, okay, collisions. Okay, so this is the first innovation. The society doesn't know about this, and our group, our students, and even sheriff, joining and explain this to the society. Okay. The second one is fuzzy logic. Fuzzy logic is needed for solving problems of survival with unlimited complexity and open-ended solutions. See, in today's scientific society, we think we solve problems. Actually, we did not solve anything. See, we just solved partially. And the real problem is to face the uncertain future, which is uncertain, which will be always open-ended. Which will be open-ended, and its complexity is infinite. So we need fuzzy logic to expand the range of tolerance to cover all the possibilities. Okay, finally, we need, specifically, we need fuzzy AI. Okay, this, fuzzy logic allows us, fuzzy AI is fundamentally it's different. Then in development, it's also different. Fuzzy AI start with self-generated neural network with unlimited software cells. Also, it's based on complete automation. And then they take stages. It's sort of progressive AI. Then when people see things, they see gradually sharper, getting sharper. Okay, this is fuzzy AI. So all these three innovations are not there. So basically, they are not going to do some autonomous system soon. Okay, because some people, David, Rob, they talk about cars. Okay, there are two things to cars. One is to avoid collision. The other is to engage in a collision. Okay, which is more important? The collision is more important because collision kills. Okay, the avoidance of collision, is like birds. Try to avoid things. Okay, we need to have cars after collision. People do not die. Okay. So we need jump pulse to absorb all the impact. So there's no fatal collision. Also, cars need not to bounce, but we can absorb all the shock if we know how to solve the contact problem. So basically, what we are talking about is the contact problem was unsolved by Isaac Newton, Robert Hooke, and Henry Hertz, three of the smartest person in mechanics. Hertz solved the static contact problem, but apparently could not solve the dynamic contact problem because he'd been looking at this problem for so long. He did not produce a solution, so basically he didn't know how to solve it. So there still remains this dynamic contact problem, which definitely requires jump pulse. Okay, no other way to describe it, but to have a concept which says a sudden change of force. When Newton defined force as push and pull. Okay, in order to push something, you must make contact first. Okay, and the Hooke is the law of spring. He's the Hooke's law of spring. So he asked Newton, how can you push? If you push it, the hand jump off. So it's
Professor Ching, thank you, because we get many questions from audience.
Okay.
We have to respond to
Okay,
the
I will
audience
respond
question.
to this question. Humans are autonomous. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Automated autonomous.
Thank you. And we want to give chance our new friend. He's very enthusiastic. Mr. Austin, can you hear me? Mr. Austin? Mr. Austin, can you hear me?
Hey,
Sorry,
yes, I can hear you. I was just writing some
Yes.
stuff on a whiteboard, actually. My apologies.
Okay. Yes.
So I think Ed really said something interesting with human interference too, because you sort of have to say you are not able to make the right decisions as much as the computer can sometimes. And Rob made a great point. The autonomous testing is done very stringently and made to be extra safe. It'd be nice if they tested it in only the safest markets or the safest place to drive. But unfortunately, the biggest demographics are in the cities where there are plenty of crazy, dangerous drivers, like in Tampa Bay, for example. So it's difficult because safety has a lot of different applications. So I think Web3 is going to bring a lot more safety to the common everyday people. Blockchain is such an important thing where you can have your own ownership that's decentralized from a platform. Say, for example, we need to align the incentives with like common people, and having a blockchain source of investing, peer-to-peer lending, and in the future, we will have a little bit more of like a liquid investing system too. I personally work for a company and I'm raising money, $5 million for, this is just like 10 seconds, where we are basically getting investment, doing real estate deals, and making the most amount of money out of a property, and then using a blockchain to make those shares more liquid and fractional, just like with NFTs. And so it's a little bit easier for you to create different incentives and spread investment out to more people. Like the stock market is so great for building wealth for so many people around the world who have the luxury of investing in it. And so safety in everyday life as well also comes down to the government incentive. The autonomous space is very much government funded, and they're looking into it and trying to make these new advances in R&D possible. So it's going to be interesting in the future watching different regulation come into the space, and it's going to be difficult because they often don't know as much about technology. The government's not really motivated by science, and in an ideal world, you know, politicians wouldn't be able to take money or advertise, and it would just be based on science and making people more happy. And I think with blockchain, eventually, better incentive structures will come into play. However, it's going to be difficult watching the government get involved and create different sort of hit with a hammer regulations. I think the safety of autonomous systems in the future is going to largely depend on public opinion too, especially with autonomous cars. I work in marketing. I've done content marketing for many years. It's difficult getting people all on the same page. There are people who already don't like the idea of letting the machine control them. They don't like the idea of the car being fully autonomous, and they don't like the idea of them not being in control, even though the machine is better and the machine can provide them with the opportunity to do less work. But some people do want to do more work, like self-checkout lines or automated checkout systems. It does put some cashiers out of business, and they don't often return to the workforce. They can sometimes do other jobs, but it's difficult because we see this rubber banding effect of the economy, whereas the Amazons of the world soak up a lot of money, and they have such trade power and so efficient that it puts, you know, small businesses at risk as well. So it's going to be interesting in the future to see the incentive structure of the economy in the world align with more common people, hopefully through blockchain. And I think the biggest investment for anybody to secure their personal safety is just to buy real estate. That's the field that I'm in. I think it's great to have your own personal home, and having rental properties is one of the biggest ways to build income. And all three of my partners at this firm who are doing fractional liquid real estate, like imagine a Web3 in the future. real estate's going to be fully liquid. You can buy into a deal, get out of it relatively easily. It'll just be like investing in the stock market. It'd be super easy to raise a lot of money. In the 2008 crash in the States, we saw all the stocks, the currencies plummet, but the one thing that stayed constant, rental income didn't move at all. So there are a lot of investors who take a lot of safety in real estate, and I hope we get to give that financial security more to everybody with blockchain and a more diversified sort of backing for people. It'd be nice if everybody could be more free, not only in the regulatory space, having less regulation on them, but monetarily given more money and power to do what they like, and as well as their attention. It sucks that the biggest automated system in our life is the social media that sort of distracts us from things. I don't want to come off too anti-futurist about it, but social media is kind of a distraction. You can use it for your own game. I like viewing social media as a game because it helps me with my business and promoting my own word of mouth for the things like raising money for properties and things. However, to a lot of people, we haven't gotten that human technology there. Hugh made a great point. It's mostly about how we train the humans and how the humans interact with, I say it like I'm not human, but how human people interact with these systems is the most important thing. We need to fix that attention first and foremost and sort of show people it's like, you don't have to be afraid. We can trust each other. And there's this great book, Getting More by Stuart Diamond. He runs the program at UPenn for negotiation. And so that class is amazing. And he basically talks about how when there's more trust in a country, things just run more smoothly. And I hope we get that for these autonomous systems and AI, where we understand that things are for our benefit. And this increased technology can not only free us up, give us more time, but also make our lives safer, especially with a better information regulation. Definitely travel. Travel is the biggest one because car accidents are such a leading cause of death in people under 30. It's ridiculous how unsafe it is, and it's going to be hard to sway public opinion for them to actually appreciate the safety that these autonomous systems provide. And Tesla, as many of you probably know, is creating their own Uber as well. It's going to be interesting to see that Tesla is going to have their own version of automated Ubers once these things launch. And I believe that they can beat any company in the space, so they'll be bigger than Uber. So I'm looking for a huge stock boom in Tesla right when that happens and they release their fully autonomous taxi service. And how amazing it would be. And ideally, they could have buses and create a better public transport system, but that's still a proof of concept far beyond just having an autonomous taxi. However, it would be lovely if we could have that come out soon. I'm not quite sure what the timeline would be on that, but I'm looking forward to it soon, and I want to get a Tesla soon. I am super into it. When I see the technology is there, I want to have my own self-driving car so I can just work on my laptop, not have to worry so much. It would free me up a lot of time, and it makes it safe for everybody else on the road that I'm not driving anymore. No, I drive like a grandpa, actually. I'm very safe. I think the biggest thing in my mind is creating a system of all these things. So having an understanding with all people that blockchain and Web3 are going to be a more decentralized and automated space where you can have ownership fractionally over any number of assets. Like say, for example, in our real estate company where we take broken down properties, we flip them, but instead of selling them, we keep them, rent them out. It's a great investment vehicle for us to increase rental income. And we rent by the room co-living spaces that are oriented towards entrepreneurs for increased efficiency of their own business too. And we get 15 to 30% higher than market rates, and that's per room. And so Square Foot Coin allows people to take part in these investments. At squarefootcoin.com, we are actually letting so many people get into investing where it's based on rental income and a little bit more economically safe and more stable. And so your investment portfolio and your retirement can sort of run itself. I am a big believer in having more passive investment strategies, and that is better for common people to take part in as well. I think it would be nice if everybody could get on the same page with understanding financial security. And that's a big hope for me. And through Square Foot Coin, you can just buy any piece of a real estate deal. And I think it's fantastic to get everybody sort of investing in their own future. I don't really have anything more to say on safety. I've talked quite a bit, and I'd love to pass the baton on to you guys. But yeah, check out Square Foot Coin if you're looking to invest. We're already making money, and we're trying to raise $5 million right now. And I think you all said amazing stuff. Rob, yours my favorite so far. What you said about autonomy and testing necessary is going to be ridiculously stringent, especially when it comes to the court of public opinion. But I'll pass it off to you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Professor Donald. Yes, there. Yes.
Well, hi. I want to mention to Austin that maybe 20, 25 years ago, my brother was into REITs, which have been around forever. You can securitize anything. You don't need blockchain to do it. REITs are called real estate investment trusts, and they do exactly what you're talking about. In fact, my brother encouraged me to invest in this one that does exactly what you do. So you don't need blockchain to do it. It's been being done for a very, very long time. I want to answer some of the questions, which is
thank you for the input, by the way, Don.
Okay. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so it sounds like what you're doing similar. I'm sure it'll be better the way you do it, though. I want to just answer a couple questions. Autonomous means that it acts on its own. And so therefore, an autonomous system of any sort basically would act on its own. So the idea of a self-driving car is that the car drives itself and you don't have to do anything. And so AI, artificial intelligence, is the hardware and software that work together to actually implement what you're trying to do, the autonomy. So that was one of the questions that people asked. And yes, humans are autonomous. Hopefully, we're less autonomous than we like to think, but we are. And somebody else asked, yeah, okay, how to prevent negative issues. That's one of the things that we're talking about in general here. But it's so interesting. I come to these sessions, and there's really amazingly in contact with industry people like David and Rob, and they talk about how far autonomous vehicles have gone, and how close they are to starting to be rolled out. And you can just day to day, you could see this. Like the other day, I saw a headline that said, Amazon rolling out self-driving trucks. So I said, whoa, boy, they're a lot farther along than I thought. Man, that'll be so great to have a self-driving truck come and deliver my packages. And so when I read what it was, is that they have a 7-mile loop with some warehouses, and they have a truck that drives around from warehouse to warehouse on a fixed path with no other traffic. I mean, they're by themselves. So they don't have to do anything about, trying to make a left turn or, anticipating what other drivers are going to do, or, avoid pedestrians or anything. It's just a fixed path. And I looked into the robots, and then I've read another one. It said in San Francisco, they have self-driving cars. Well, a teeny weeny part of San Francisco, where the streets are actually laid out like a grid, have self-driving cars. As long as they don't drive in the rain, they don't drive during times when there's heavy traffic. They're very, very restricted in what they can do. And even so, they do things like drive down dead end streets and not know where they are and things like that. So they're not exactly, it's not the same as, say, for an instance, many of the people wouldn't know this, but there's a wonderful road that threads along the coast of California called Highway 1. And there's a beautiful, beautiful part south of a town called Carmel, where you're basically threading along, and on your right is a 500-foot cliff to the ocean, and on your left is a 500-foot cliff above you. So you're just going along. It's breathtaking. But boy, you've got to be on to drive on that road. And sometimes there's bicyclists, and if it's raining, and that's easy because there's really not a lot of cross streets. But in a city, there's bicyclists come out in front of you, and so companies have a percentage in basically hyping and overstating what they do. And about 2 weeks ago, someone made a video of driving in a self-driving mode in a Tesla. And this is prohibited by things that you sign. And this is a very advanced Tesla, because this full self-driving mode, they haven't released to the world. They said it's going to be, 6 months. And so it's 6 months in the future, always has been and always will be. But it was just terrible. It mistook light rail tracks for roads and took off the road and started driving down the light rail tracks. It wasn't avoiding pedestrians. It was a long, long way from being anywhere near being useful in self-driving mode. And I'd like to make an observation from my, 25 years of software development, which is that it's really, really sometimes easy to come up with a prototype of something that gives you the idea that you've got something that's going to work. And so I'd say that basically coming up with a basic system is about 5% of the work. And the other 95% is anticipating every single solitary error that people are going to make and having some sort of an error message or method that they can recover from those errors. And when you're doing software, it's a joke among us, is that you do all this, you work, you QA it, you do everything, and the first person that uses it in a way you didn't expect and crashes it. I mean, that's actually, it's so common, it's amazing. And so when we're looking at autonomous things, we really have to tell them what to do beforehand. So they're autonomous in a sense, but they're not really autonomous. So for the robots in the hospital, you have to give them a map of the hospital, and all they do is just carry pills from one place to another. It's not like they're going to take your blood pressure or anything like that. They had autonomous security guards in a mall in Palo Alto. And they're basically these big tin cans that drive around with cameras on them and take pictures of everything going on, and people can look at the video and decide something. And even one of those ran over a little kid, and which was kind of not so fun. So right now, I think that we tend to kind of overstate what's being done with these things. And and as we develop them, I think that it's important, as everybody said, to start being able to find out what their flaws are when they actually start existing, and trying to figure out what we can do. But it's science fiction now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Marshall, we have many speakers, so we have to move fast, and then we go for concluding remarks. Mr. Marshall, thank you for
Oh,
your
okay.
message.
Thank you for having me, Sharif. And it's nice to see Austin and his contribution on here. It's the first time I've heard him. I think it's pretty interesting. I think everybody here have made salient points about autonomous systems and their reliance. Everybody's usually talking about transportation and Tesla and things like that. But autonomous systems have been involved in not just robotics, but also in the internet from the get-go through the development of various types of internet systems that are at their core. I'm not talking about the HTTPS or the hypertext markup languages, but the core blocks. There's like 7 systems in North America. There's one in Malaysia. There's several throughout the world. I think there's a total of 27 key systems, and a lot of them use autonomous math. And I think, as Hugh pointed out, a lot of fuzzy logic is involved. And I sort of want to go into that a little bit before I go on. I know we don't have a lot of time, but fuzzy logic is defined for those out there that don't know it. I have a background in mathematics and psychology, so I could tell you that when I started learning computer systems, everything was zeros and ones. That's Boolean algebra. That's Boolean logic. Fuzzy logic is an extension of that, where, let's say, between 1 and 9, you've got all these choices that are not either a 0 or a 1. And so what fuzzy logic does is it creates rules of the road, so to speak, to how to make determinations of something that is not a 0 or a 1, that is not either yes or no, on or off type approach that most basic fundamental systems have been using since the advent of computer systems and technology. The other thing that I liked was that both Rob and David addressed the issue of how they're being used and in different areas. And then Austin brought forth his technology using blockchain. I'm a big advocate of blockchain, especially as it's used not so much for cryptocurrency, but as a transparent method to keep track of things. Kind of like inventory as an example. So I know that there are risks with all these things, as Donald pointed out. And what Donald was talking about is basically adoption of innovation. And that's part of my background and what I bring to the table. I've been involved in adoption of innovation of all sorts of technologies and developments and deployments of service businesses that are considered an innovation in the marketplace. And right now we're involved in technology that brings an adoption of how you take waste and turn it into products that reduce environmental impacts, as I've said on previous programs. So the question here is, from my perspective, these autonomous systems, are they relevant? Yes. Are they being deployed? Yes. Are they going to be here in the future? Yes. The question is, what does the adoption curve look like? And most adoption curves have a standard T curve. That means that there's from the point at the top to the left and the point to the top to the right, they're identical curves. But that's the general normal distribution curve, or a standard T curve. Unfortunately, what we're looking at today in today's world, especially today with the political news that we have, that war has been declared in the Ukraine, it creates doubt in people's minds. And what people are not taking into account, which is another part of my background, which is clinical psychology, is that people make decisions not based on logic, fuzzy logic, or the computers do that. But what people do is they make most of their decisions, believe it or not, 95% or even higher of their decisions based upon emotional content and how they feel. And so we have to integrate how people feel when they adopt something that is innovative. And in the beginning, the tail on the left is very small, and that is usually designated as the innovators, people such as Austin that are bringing some new technology into play, or Tesla that's bringing these automated systems for cars. But it grows gradually. The next group that adopts are what we call after the innovators are the early adopters. And those people adopt because they've seen what's happened with the innovators. And we heard Austin's appeal for money. That is typical of the innovators. And then the early adopters tend to bring some money to the table, but they're not as big as early majority, late majority, and the laggards, which are on the other side of this adoption curve. And this is all quantitative math. It can be quantified, and you can determine what is the likelihood of an outcome of an adoption of an innovation. That's what I've been doing for the past 30 years and been successful at doing that. And it's not an easy task. And one of the things that I think David always likes to point out is, and I think he pointed out very, very succinctly, is that there's not one market here. There are multiple markets, and David always likes to bring to the table, okay, this market is worth this billion by, a CAGR or an amount of money that's going to be sold over time. And that is part of the adoption curve information that we need to acquire. So I think the key element that I'll leave you with here is that from our perspective is that the adoption of this technology depends on the audience and the culture that you're trying to implant it. So for an example, Austin gave us an example about what's happening in the United States. And Donald talked about Route 1 on driving on Route 1 in California, which I've driven many times. But I can tell you right now, most of the audience that are probably watching this are unfamiliar with it, or if they have familiarity with it, they've done it as tourists. Most of the people out there we're talking to should be the developing world. And that's where I think the focus of our thought process should be, is how do you get adoption of this in the developing world, not just in the first world? First world will adopt it. It's going to occur. The question is, how quickly will it be adopted in the developing world? And the developing world needs this as much as the first world, especially with all the risks attendant emotionally and politically in the world as we see it today. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you for having me, Sharif, on this program.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's sessions. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. Professor Rob, you can take any of the questions from audience. I know you have a special meeting today, so I want to give you a chance. And you can go for the concluding remarks for today. Professor Rob.
Well, sure. In conclusion, and I think it's consistent with what a lot of people have said. It's critical that you do substantial amount of testing before you introduce an autonomous system that's going to have to interleave with human operators or people. Otherwise, you'll have a high degree of unfortunate accidents and harm. The question I'll take is, what is the difference between AI and autonomy? The AI stands for artificial intelligence. That is really speaking to the brain of the system and its potential and capability. You can have an AI in a system and not necessarily have the system be autonomous. So for instance, an AI in a weapons system located on a plane that's flown by a pilot might simply advise the pilot on what it is they should do, and might assist the pilot with aiming and target acquisition, but the pilot is still engaged in the process. An autonomous aircraft would be pilotless, and everything would be controlled by the computer. So one has to do with the brain, the other has to do with how much influence a human operator has on the system. Full autonomy means no human interaction. It operates without humans. And you can have an autonomous system that doesn't necessarily have an AI. It's just simply a computer that operates a control and does so automatically under a series of conditions. And as I mentioned, you can have AIs that aren't autonomous. So it really just depends on the underlying implementation. And thanks again, Sharif, for this time. I'm going to now run off to my meeting and talk to you later.
Thank you. We have a debate tomorrow.
Oh, so, what is it?
Yes, our debate topic, the robot, will this house believe that robot will take our job? So you can go as a government or opposition. Last time you were opposition leaders. So this time you can be the Prime Minister or Professor David Smith and Professor Rob.
I can do either side of that one. Whichever side David doesn't want to do, I'll do the other side.
Okay. Decision of the You
Right.
two
The
are
other way. I'll do
team
the side
leaders,
that David doesn't want
and
to
the
do.
other speakers, our other speakers, going to follow you, and they will decide they can go for government and opposition. And
Sure.
we have a good news, like we are trying to solving the human trafficking issues in Asia Pacific. So some largest NGO like BRAC, Tata Group, Singapore governments, many largest organizations, even some prime minister and president, they are joining in our forum. And hopefully robot can be one of the solutions in the future. We will do a summit. We will do real life projects. And your debate is really valuable for us.
Okay.
Even we are publishing research papers. Many researchers actually joining from around the world. We are really happy with your debates and everything. Our audience really like the debate, our publications, and largest corporation going to arrange this summit as well as a real life solution for human trafficking. So robot can be issue, but we will arrange the debate and audience will decide who will solve the complex problem.
So
Thank
David,
you.
which side do you want, so I know which side I'm on?
I can do either side. I just have to channel you depending on which side I'm on, Rob.
Okay.
All right, then
Mr. Marshall, you can do a coin toss.
I'll be the government then, and
I'll take opposition then.
and be opposition.
Okay.
So that's good.
And
That way I know
based on topic, the other speaker, you can choose your team. You can go for either government, Professor Rob team, or you can go for the opposition's Professor David Smith team. So this debate become very popular. Largest governments, corporate body, NGOs, they are joining. We can solve millions of people problem. I do not know why people go for where. There are many problems. We have water problem. We have energy problem. We have waste management problem. We can solve many things. So your debate will be very, very helpful for our community. Thank you, Professor Ram. I know you are busy.
See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Professor
Hi,
David.
Rob.
Yes.
Well,
Professor
sure,
David.
thank you so much. This is a good topic. I'm going to be very short in trying to do the conclusion because a lot has gone on. So if I look at this particular technology area and the reliability and safety of it, there's quite a bit of expected growth for it in many different segments, from cars to robots to intelligent decision systems and others. And all of them are growing in double digit areas. One of the things that has to happen is to enable high levels of autonomy, stringent requirements in terms of reliability, safety, of not only the system must be met, but each of the components in the system too, because all these autonomous systems are systems of systems. And that's why you have the S at the end of them, both the autonomous and on the system side. And there has to be ability to reach a safe state in a fully autonomous way. And there has to be guarantees and rules and regulations around that. So what are some of the opportunities? Intelligence, autonomous systems have been very useful in facing the pandemic emergencies. You saw robots disinfecting areas. You see autonomous vehicles transmitting COVID tests and other things like that. You're seeing them used so many different places. One of the big growth areas for autonomous is how do you help protect humans in exposures to healthy, risky conditions, such as in the nuclear power plants that have had challenges and things. We've seen that. You're seeing them autonomous drones. You're seeing them for environmental monitoring, post-earthquake, space exploration. The list goes on and on. So what do we need to do? There needs to be significant research investment, both academic and industry, in high reliability and safety solutions, particularly for highly autonomous intelligent systems. A lot of research and development still needs to go into investigate the interaction between reliability, safety, security, privacy, and what are the time approaches there. I could keep on going, but this is kind of where we're headed with this topic. And it creates a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurship, a lot of opportunities in academia, a lot of opportunities for collaboration in the commercial, government, private sector to come up with these solutions that are going to affect us well into the future. So it's a very open area with a lot of work going on, and it's one that is in the early stages of its Fisher-Price growth in a technology substitution mode. So Sharif, thank you for allowing me to be part of this, and thank you again for allowing me to take on Rob tomorrow in the debate. And I think Sharif looks frozen. So Hugh, you want to go next?
Yeah, okay, let's see. Anybody want to? Yeah, okay, let me answer this question on are humans autonomous? Okay, this is, I guess people need to remember my answer because they probably won't understand right now. My answer is humans are autonomous within the range of tolerance of fuzzy logic. Okay, fuzzy logic deal with the range of tolerance. Today's exact logic has no range of tolerance. So I have extended today's basic question of why is reality fuzzy. And they're saying that the fuzzy logic has a finite range of tolerance, and the exact logic has zero range of tolerance. A human has a range of tolerance. Robot has zero range of, machine has a zero range of tolerance. So basically, I'm the heir to Sade, father of fuzzy logic. So basically, we deal with knowledge, so we're probably not as famous as most people who promote themselves a lot and also go to money. But regarding money, this liquid real estate, I can help dominate the field because I was the leader of all the appraisers and the top commercial real estate brokers during the saving loan crisis. Okay, if you read my comment, you see that we have the solution. We can predict. We have never been wrong in predicting real estate. It's easy, but there's one catch. You see, I have a high priority. I invent the universal permanent money, which can use some blockchain. You see, so people want to talk about it. Invention money is much more important than doing real estate. It's much easier. no hassle. You just Bitcoin is better than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is just it survives because anti-government, but the government can make some digital currency, and the Bitcoin will be gone. So basically, that's some of my comments.
Thank you, Professor Donald.
Sure. Well, people have been making a lot of interesting points. I want to just kind of say something about autonomy itself. We do things for a purpose to get ourselves forward in life or make things happen for us in life. That's what we do. You look at an autonomous, you can get an autonomous vacuum cleaner, and the autonomous vacuum cleaner just basically goes around your house vacuuming, and when it bounces into a wall, it changes direction. And if you let it bounce around long enough, it'll eventually vacuum your whole house. They've actually upgraded them where now they have a little map so that they don't repeat themselves as often, because it was before that sometimes they'd vacuum one area very well and miss other areas. But the point is, you can be autonomous without having any degree of intelligence whatsoever. Human being, we often talk about computers solving problems, but computers don't have problems. I mean, if the computer crashes, whose problem is that? Not the computer's, it's our problem. And so what we do is we tend to anthropomorphize computers, and there's been research. My friend Brian Kugelman repeated a bunch of standard social psychology experiments, but used computers as the other person, so it's dyadic. So and found that the results were that highly correlated with when they're doing it with the computer, they were getting basically the same results as they were getting when they did it with humans, showing that humans, that's one piece of research. There's been quite a bit. And so it's important, I think, to realize that we're a long way from any sort of intelligent autonomous, because we don't even define intelligence in any way that makes sense. And so what we need to worry about is, the thing about the robot in the shopping mall running over kids. Autonomous vehicles are pretty far in the future, but as in California, they've put the liability on the car companies. So basically, if a Tesla kills somebody, it's a defect, a product warranty defect. Other states blame the driver, but all of those kinds of things are going to have to be worked out over time. But I think that worrying about autonomous things being way more advanced than that vacuum cleaner that bumps around at this point is pretty premature. So,
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Austin, what's your concluding remarks for today?
So you're asking for like a last note on things. I thought it was funny because I thought you were going to go the angle of like, oh, humans are autonomous but not intelligent sometimes. And I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. But I'm wondering, as far as like safety goes in these autonomous things, when will the Terminators come? Maybe this is said in jest, but I think it's quite an argument to make that like AI is going to be dangerous, but it does suck. It's bad if the car company is the one held liable, because that's going to make it difficult as an economic incentive for them to move forward and actually make progress. That seems like it's a very heavy-handed thing to do, and it takes away from the ability of them to innovate. It seems like trying to saddle them with the responsibility of these lawsuits is like another move to prevent the progress moving forward. Because as we know, and we're going to talk about next time, progress does take away a lot of market share from previous existing industries. And we're going to see a lot of these autonomous systems taking jobs out of the hands of people. So I'm excited to join in that talk as well. And I have quite a lot of experience with this type of problem. But yeah, also Sharif, I just wanted to say, thank you for having me, and sorry for rambling a little bit. I wasn't super prepared for the talk, but I do know a little bit about this particular industry, and it was a pleasure hearing all of you guys talk, and I'll just pass the baton. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Austin. Mr. Marshall.
Well, thank you, Sharif and Austin. It's great to see a new face on this panel. We have great faces here. Everybody here has been terrific contributors to these conversations, discussions, and also the debates. With regard to the litigiousness of adoption of any innovation, that's a legal question, and the legal questions we find are generally not related to the technologies themselves. We tend to think that way, but having gone to law school and having my brother is an attorney, a litigating attorney, I know that the rules of the road for litigation are totally different than the adoption of any innovation and technologies. And how that gets sorted out is a different set of protocols, and a different depends on where you are. As I said earlier in this conversation, if our audience is in the United States and you're in California, it could be one set of litigation. If you're in New York, where I am currently, that's another set of litigation. If you're at a federal level in the United States, it's another set of litigation. If you're in the province of Ontario, Canada, it's totally different there. If you're in Kuala Lumpur, it's going to be totally different again. So I think the issue of the litigation issue is relevant, but it's relevant at the local level. That doesn't stop innovations from being created. It's part of the human condition that we are always thinking and are autonomous, as you pointed out. And as autonomous thinkers, we are always trying to improve ourselves, and sometimes use it for not improving ourselves, but for taking power from other people, as we're seeing today in today's invasion of Ukraine. Having been in the military, I do know that military systems, like especially armored core systems, are getting and integrating autonomous technology in it, so that the people that are in the tank can devote their attention to other things. And that's part of the process of humanity, unfortunately. So my concluding remarks are, hopefully we will use these autonomous systems for the betterment of mankind, and bring them in. As we know, we're using blockchain ourselves for measuring what kind of waste goes into our pyrolytic carbon capture and storage systems, and what comes out on the other end, which is typically called biochar or elemental char, depending on what kind of char is going in, and what material feedstock is going in, and what's coming out. So, and how that's used. So blockchain, I think, is part of the autonomous equation, and I think it's something that needs to be adopted. It is being adopted. And like I said, all these things are going to create adoption one way or the other. And it all gets measured at the local level and gets deployed at the local level, but in fact, it impacts everybody worldwide. So that's my comments for today. Thank you, Sharif, for having me.
Thank you, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Tomorrow we have debate, so I request all of our speakers, please join in our debate. This debate actually very popular, as well as I said that today actually I feel very bad, because when I started, even the COVID come, I started this World Talent Economy Forum every day, actually new day for me. Every day I bring new peoples, new humans, and meet with new, like engage with new projects, new things. It's actually very very productive last 2 years, like when we start our online initiative World Talent Economy Forum. I want to give special thanks to all of our speakers, our audience, and everyone. But trust me, today I feel very bad, because I'm observing from Asia Pacific, there are actually many things we need to help to our humans. We need to solve many problems. We have to solve educational problem. We have to solve uh, SDG related problem, water problem, waste management problem, energy problems, many productive things we can do. Trust me, there is a millions and millions people, they need our support. Now this world has a lot of challenges, but how come like our global leaders, politicians, they actually go for war in these pandemic situations. Many people die, many, even my family member died for COVID. Many people do not have healthcare system. Many people do not have proper education system. Many people lose their job. Many positive things we can do. Even World Talent Economy Forum, we are very small initiative, but millions of people actually engaging with us, uh, for education, for healthcare, for food and safety, for water purifications. Many productive things we can do. War actually never be a solution. So talent economy, we are always for human. We take all of our initiative for human. I request all of our global leaders, please support humans, support our peoples, support the developed world, developing world's people. We need your support. War never be a solution. Please stop this war and save human lives, always important. It's American, it's African, it's Indians, it's Malaysian, no problem. Only one thing, we need to save human lives. So war never be a solution. The politician, those who go for war, remember, history is very dangerous. They will remember you as a leaders, as a hero, or they will throw you in the dustbin. So maybe you are now powerful, you never know, you will lose your power. Now you have army, now you have money, but you never know, after 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, who cares? They people will think that you are the enemy for human development. So I request all of the politicians, all of the developing nations people, developed nations people, we are working with many politicians, many prime minister office, president's house, corporations, NGO, academy. I request everyone, please support humanity, Do all of the positive work. I believe our whole life will finish with all of the positive work. How come people go for war and all of the negative work? So I believe all of our speakers, our audience will support us for solving this complex problem. And please, no war, only do the positive things. And Mr. Marshalls, Mr. Austin, Professor Ching, Professor Donalds, all of your contributions will be very, very helpful for our audience. And trust me, with World Talent Economy Forum, how you contributing for human beings, you will be part of the history. Next month, we are helping more than 5,000 people. We do not have too much of money, only we have positive people. We do not have power, only we have positive people. So the positive people can change human lives. We need to support humanity and we need to work for each other. Thank you everyone for this excellent session. Thank you, bye-bye and take care. See you
Thank you,
tomorrow
Sharif.
for our